All right, let's talk about something huge that's happening right now, something that's changing the internet as we know it. We're diving into the EU's Digital Services Act. Now, this thing is a really big deal, and trust me, it affects pretty much every single platform you use. So let's break it down.
Okay, let me ask you something. Do you ever just scroll through your phone and think, man, is the internet just totally out of control? You know, like a digital Wild West? Yeah, if you've ever felt that way, you are definitely not alone.
I mean, for years now, we've all been bumping up against the same problems, right? You've got illegal goods and straight-up scams popping up on marketplaces. You've got disinformation and hate speech spreading like wildfire. And honestly, who even understands the rules on these platforms? They seem totally confusing and are enforced, well, whenever they feel like it. It's really felt like the technology just zoomed past the old rulebook.
And that's the perfect setup for our first section, the Digital Wild West. You gotta understand the problem before the solution really makes any sense. So here's the crazy part. For 20 years, think about that, 2 decades, the main rules for the internet barely changed at all. And in that same time, the internet went from this quirky thing a few people used to, well, everything. It became the center of our lives, our friendships, our economy, and that left this massive gap between the old, dusty laws and the reality we live in every single day.
So the big question is, how do you actually tame that Wild West without, ruining all the cool stuff about it? Well, that brings us right to Section 2, the EU's new rulebook. We're talking about the Digital Services Act, or the DSA for short.
So what is the DSA, really? At its heart, it's the EU's big answer to all those problems we just talked about. It's a landmark piece of regulation, and it has 3 main goals: make the internet safer for all of us, make the platforms way more transparent, and actually hold them accountable for what's happening on their watch. Okay, this next point is absolutely crucial. The DSA doesn't just throw out the old rulebook. You know that old idea of a safe harbor, where platforms aren't automatically responsible for every single thing a user posts? Well, that's still there. But, and this is a huge but, it adds this critical new layer on top. Platforms get to keep that protection, but only if they step up and actively do their part. They have to tackle illegal content and deal with the big systemic harms their services might cause.
So of course, that leads to the next big question. What exactly are these new duties? Well, that's what we're diving into in Section 3. Let's break down the new rules. Who's on the hook, and what do they actually have to do?
Right, so this isn't some one-size-fits-all deal. The DSA is smart about this. It's got this tiered system, kind of like a staircase. The bigger and more influential you are, the more responsibility you have. So down at the bottom, you've got your basic internet service providers. But as you climb the steps to hosting services, then online platforms like social media, and all the way to the top, the very large online platforms, or VLOPs, the rules get way, way tougher. And get this, and this is a huge point, it doesn't matter one bit where your company's headquarters are. If you have users in the EU, you have to follow these rules. Silicon Valley, London, Tokyo, doesn't matter. The DSA applies. This law has serious global reach. This table really lays it out perfectly. You can see that pretty much all platforms have to do the basics, right? Like taking down illegal stuff and giving users a way to appeal decisions. But check out the column on the right. That's where it gets serious for the big guys. Only the VLOPs have to do these huge yearly risk assessments to figure out how their own systems might be causing harm. And on top of that, they have to get independently audited to prove they're actually doing what they say they're doing. The DSA also rolls out this really clever idea called trusted flaggers. So think of these as vetted expert organizations, maybe a nonprofit that's amazing at spotting hate speech, for example. When they flag something as illegal, their report gets to jump to the front of the queue. It's a way to turbocharge moderation and make it way more accurate.
Okay, so let's bring it back to you. What's in it for the average user? Well, a whole bunch, actually. You get a brand new set of rights. For one, you now have the right to see who paid for that ad in your feed. You have a right to know exactly why your post got taken down, and you have the right to appeal that decision. And this is a big one. It totally bans ads that target kids or use your really sensitive data. We're talking things like your religion or your political views.
All right, new rules, new rights. That all sounds great, but does any of it actually matter? Do these rules have any teeth? That's what we're talking about in Section 4, the high stakes of compliance. Okay, I just want you to focus on this one number. 6%. Just let that sink in for a second. What is that? That's the fine. For a major violation of the DSA, a company can be fined up to 6% of its global annual turnover. We're not talking profit here. We're not even talking about their revenue just from Europe. We're talking about 6% of everything they make worldwide in a year. For the biggest tech companies, that's billions with a B. This is no slap on the wrist. This is serious.
And don't think this is something that's coming down the road. As you can see right here on this timeline, it's happening now. The DSA is in full force. The deadlines for everyone, from the biggest players down to the smaller platforms, have already passed. We are deep in the enforcement phase. The grace period, that's over.
So when you put it all together, what does it all mean? For our final section, let's zoom out and look at the big picture. The real question is, are we looking at the beginning of a truly safer digital future?
You know, there's a quote in our source material that I think just nails the whole spirit of this thing. The point here isn't just about forcing companies into a legal compliance checklist. It's about creating a whole new framework, one that pushes for a real culture of responsibility. It's about building a foundation so we can all be better digital citizens.
And that leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. Sure, the DSA is an EU law, but remember what happened with the GDPR? It created this ripple effect across the globe. The DSA is setting a powerful new standard for how the internet should work. So, will other countries follow the EU's lead? Could this be the start of a single global standard for a safer, more accountable internet? That's the billion-dollar question, and you can be sure we'll be watching to see how it plays out.